On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
I always feel to my core is that if you put forth the effort and do what you're supposed to do and handle your business and boss up, then the contract almost is invisible if you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. I know there are situations that may come up that you're kind of blindsided, but that's life. Our current marriage could be blindsided to certain things that come up. But to me, something like a contract really shows investment in both parties into this union to say, hey, you know what? Both of us are coming together and I'm willing to invest in the betterment of this partnership.
All right, you guys.
On
Again,
Wednesdays.
welcome to Lapeef. Let's talk. We're gonna move
Tuesdays now.
right into our first topic, which is should marriage certificates have an expiration date? Should marriage certificates have an expiration date? It's a lot of people that are getting married, and there's a lot of people that are getting divorced. So the question is, the situation that we tend to run into is that you don't know the person fully ever. So a lot of situations come up and you begin to question your marriage. So should it be an opportunity for you to say, hey, after a certain time period, I don't want to do this anymore? Let's open it up for the table. Be next. Should marriage certificates have an expiration date?
You know what? Like, I still kind of in my mind think about this as a joke, but Anton, I always talk about shit as it relates to work. The thing is, like, hey, and we look at it from the aspect of like, hey, being in a relationship is hard work. And if you ain't performing to the best of your ability, you might put an action plan halfway through. And if it just ain't working after that 5 year, I don't renew the contract. So I think folks may look at it differently if we did it like that. So I mean, I'm being facetious about this, but it does make you wonder, like, hey, could that be an option? It's almost like how you look at insurance, right? You get whole life insurance versus term. So the thing is that something that we want to entertain to have like a term to your marriage? When you get the certificate, you have to do whole life marriage certificate, or you can get term 5, 10, 15, or 5 with a alpha male option for the additional year, So I think that'd be something that it wouldn't be bad. Because it'll be up to that couple to choose one whole life marriage certificate or term marriage certificate. I'm for it.
All right. Tawana, should marriage certificates have an expiration date?
No. It's so ridiculous just because other people's marriages fail, now other like us who really are committed to being married, we can't have a wedding. We can't have the dream of forever. Like, I don't know. I just don't agree with that. I feel like, why should we put an expiration date on a union that we are creating like together? I guess people do prenuptials and people do other things to kind of, make sure that they feel secure in their marriage. I guess if there's money involved or if that's the issue. So I think there's other things you can do and put timelines on to kind of protect yourself if that's the concern. But that's why you got to get a divorce. I don't know. I just don't really understand. So if it's a certificate, what does that mean? Like, you just get out of the marriage after 5 years, you got to get remarried.
We just both walk away.
So you got to get remarried
like Trump.
So can you continue your license if you choose to, though? Like, how is that going to work? I don't know how I feel about that. I just feel like,
hey, both people got to sign a marriage certificate. So if they go, like you said, this is a union, right? So the thing is, this is just like a certificate. Instead of just doing like this open-ended certificate, you could opt to say like, hey, I would like to do a 10-year stint.
Here's the thing. I don't believe in making rules based on how others, like, just because other people's marriage fail. I don't feel like we should make the rules based around
it's up to
that.
Those two people in the marriage, though. Think about it, like you mentioned earlier, like with a prenuptial agreement. Some people are against that. They were like, no, that's not organic. And Anton, what we said months back, it's about love and about just feeling good. It's about the vibes, right?
Yeah.
But then you be like, no, it's a business, right? And if you treat your marriage like you're the CEO, then the thing is, you want the best performance out of your partner, and vice versa. So
you put a time frame on it and get it together, huh?
Hey man,
no, don't put no time frame. I like the freedom of choice, And
Right.
we can choose to be married, and we can decide when it's over on our own. We don't need the government to give us an issue date, and we don't need a timeline created by anyone. I think that we as a couple should be like, hey, you know what, this marriage, and go into it obviously wanting the marriage to last forever and not 4 or 5 years and then we can make a decision, or 2 years and then we can figure it out. Like, I don't really like the idea of a time frame on it. It's just my thoughts, I guess.
I don't know, man. I kind of feel like I can see both sides of it, because then there's that aspect of what if that person doesn't want to get out of a relationship, even though it's toxic. Then you have a problem. So you can kind of eliminate a lot of the hassle by having an expiration date, because if everything is a go, when that date comes, then you guys just going to sign off on it again and just keep moving forward. But I do think it will hold people more accountable about their relationship, knowing that it's an expiration date. I think that they would, hold themselves together and not let themselves go. They would be more consistent. And then it just gives you a choice. That's what life is about. It's about choices, right? Anton, should
True.
marriage certificates have an expiration date?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of it, simply that because it incentivizes you to always move a specific type of way, right? Like, if you had a lifetime contract or some kind of golden parachute as it relates to your job, for example, one of the things that you work towards, or the things that incentivizes you to be great in whatever it is that you do, is that you got a yearly evaluation, as far as like, to review your performance. And if you're not performing the way you need to, you might go on the PIP. You know what I'm saying? You might you might go on the PIP though, really. Like, but I guess the thing about it is that I don't see why not. I mean, marriage, the certificate in itself is a contract. Like, the contract affords you certain benefits, even as it relates to, your tax benefits and the government and all of the the incentives that you get. When you make a certain type of money, if you get married, then it goes up, a lot higher to keep you in a lower tax bracket, to pay lower taxes, and the healthcare benefits that you get as a result of being with certain people and all of these other type of things. So all these things get renewed and all these things get reevaluated after a period of time. And I don't understand why you can't continuously come to the table and say, yo, what can we do better? Or should we, evaluate what it is that we have to make sure that it's working or it's not working, and then structure it to where, if things aren't moving a certain type of way, or it is, you move forward without always having to involve the court or involve some sort of other entity to help you make a decision, or go through a messy or involve lawyers and all of these things in
So we
order
just
to
gonna wait for
ensure.
our certificate.
Yeah,
We're gonna
I
wait
mean,
for the
I don't really see
certificate.
a problem with it. The only caveat that I would add to it is that if you have kids, that the term should be significantly longer, because that would incentivize you to be able to stay together in order to ensure that the kids are in the best space possible. And things like certain things I think should be negotiable. Maybe you can negotiate how long the initial term is or whatever it is. But again, in most things that we have in life, you have to renew it. You got to renew your job, driver's license. You got to go on. You know what I'm saying? I don't understand why we can't continuously reevaluate where we are in that aspect of our life also, in addition to everything else that we always do a self-check. A lot of times I see people always say, well, they let themselves go or whatever. I think you would pay attention a lot more if you had, some visibility into the fact that you had to be accountable for what your performance was
Well, I
in
feel
the
like
previous
also you don't
year.
take that partner for granted, and not to say there has to, folks always talk about applying pressure and stuff, but the thing is, it's one of those like, hey, if this is what you want, you show and prove. Hell, you could be like Greek Freak, where you be like, hey, you know what? Hey, I want to sign for an extension before my contract is up. You know what I mean? So just because things are going well. So I think, just to me, I would look at it just giving somebody the option. Hey, you could go in, when you go in for that marriage certificate, you could go for just open-ended whole life, or you could kind of vary, like, hey, since we got seeds, hey, we got to at least go. This might have to be like a 12 to 18, year
16,
contract or something
a
like that.
10-year contract or something.
Yeah, and they may say
I
like
mean,
based on the
I would
numbers.
even. I mean, I think it should be incentivized and that it should move similar to contracts that you get like for sports, like sports contracts. Like this might not be guaranteed. This is a non-guaranteed contract, fam. Like if you are not meeting certain expectations or you fail to reach a specific clause, such as you're found to be, cheating or infidelity is introduced in the way that you're moving. I don't think
Yeah.
that the other person should be penalized as a result of sitting around in that situation.
It's like the collective bargaining agreement, and I'm not
It
a union
is.
member, but hey, that's an infraction. Hey,
I don't see nothing wrong with it. I really don't.
Hey,
honestly.
You get a verbal warning. If you got X amount of warnings, and what it lead to? Suspension, then expulsion, right? And like, hey, you know what? We're done here. We actually got to terminate early.
I don't see no problem with it,
bro. Walk away. Because think about it. I mean, not to say it doesn't happen. People don't talk about it, but there's cases where people are in situations where they know it's just not working. And a lot of times, like this gives also the option. I know we're looking at it from a slanted aspect, like this is a way out, like an escape clause, but hey, this is for both parties to kind of walk away. And with that understanding, like, you know what, we tried to do that. We did this for 18, 20 year, stint. Our kids are now adult age. Hey, let's just part ways now, Because the thing is, think about like, and I, from what I hear, I haven't researched this fully, but you think about just with prenuptial agreements, like in California, where after 10 years, then it's now everything is split down the middle. So it shows that there is legislature at the state level that shows that things are kind of more like you mentioned, Anton, this binding agreement. So we're just saying to take it like a step further. If anything, it could all be packaged together, as opposed to just being kind of this multifaceted contract of the prenuptial along with the marriage certificate, term of marriage certificate.
Yeah, my biggest thing is that, I mean, for a lot of people, it just sounds weird that they're like, nah, I can't see that. But help me to understand the downside. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't think of a downside as a result of this being something that, we highlight as should be instituted. So I don't know. I can't think of one downside.
And we're not saying it's a requirement. The thing is, you could go with a legacy marriage certificate that's not term. You know what I mean? You could be like, hey, I want that legacy. I just want to go in open-ended marriage certificate. And somebody may be like, no, I want that new marriage certificate that just got passed in the state of XYZ. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, but think about it. Like a lot of the ways in which we operate is based off of things that's been set in stone for literally hundreds of years, bro. And it's like with the evolution of who we are and what we're becoming and what times are and the way things are changing, I don't understand why we're not evaluating even these things that we consider legacy, even from a contractual perspective, and saying, yo, what are the upsides? What are the downsides? What does history tell us? What are the statistics? How often do people get divorced? How often do they not? And then make modifications based off of, what we've realized and learned over time, and say, yo, can we move differently? And how do we create a better environment?
We won't really change the divorce rate. It will just be called something else. Contract ended, negotiation. I mean, so people will still end their marriages, and that still will be an issue. But maybe now people will be able to get married more often. So then you'd have 10 ex-wives and 10 ex-husbands. Like
I got a question for you.
Renewing the contract.
I'm in agreement with it. But do you feel that like, and not to compare this to sports, but this is just an easy comparison group to associate this with. Let's say like you in the last year of your contract. Do you feel like that's a different level of anxiety you may have? You're like, damn, hey, things been kind of rocky. I'm approaching my last year. Hey, we ain't had contract negotiations, any discussions yet. Like, I don't know. Do you feel like that would jeopardize no one going into that last year? Like, man, this mug might leave.
No, I think that I think pressure is good. Pressure is good in all situations because it's either going to sort out the trash or it's going to force you to become the best version of yourself. And so I don't have a problem with separating And again, I don't necessarily think it's a problem with whether or not people are going to get divorced more often or not, but I just think that the fact that everything that comes as a result of us being reactive versus proactive about our decisions create a messy situation. And so in most situations, divorces are messy. You know what I'm saying? Because there is no understanding, or because somebody got blindsided, or because, somebody is in it for the wrong reasons, or people change, or, somebody feel a certain type of way. But often at times they become incredibly messy because there is no structure and there is no proactive mentality that comes along with the circumstances by which we find ourselves in. So I just think that maybe it's not necessarily for that reason, but it creates a better dynamic based off of what it is that we're expecting and how we can clean up some of the messes that we leave behind as a result of the decisions that we make.
I mean, I don't really see no difference. People still, if I know my contract ended and you don't want to renew it, I'm still going to act.
Like, I'll give you an example.
More
often at times, people spend a ton of money on lawyers, or they spend a ton of money on court fees, and
like the divorce process is difficult. I would say
be dragged out a really long time
but maybe that's intentional as well, so that you can kind of discourage you from wanting to get a divorce. Because I know that going through that process and walking through the court, I was like, I'm never doing this again. Like, never. I just cannot ever see myself going through this and divorcing someone. Like, it's the worst process you could ever go through. So I think that's intentional, right? Like, if they made it real easy, you might just leave any situation. Because I mean, if I know I could just go and push a button and get a divorce, you
would have to abide by whatever the terms is that you agree with, right? You know what I'm saying? You got to play out your contract.
But if
you're performing great, then we can re-up at a better rate. And if you're not performing good, you might get cut from the team.
On the
re-up, that's all.
On the re-up, can I get a longevity? Can I get the forever clause in the re-up, or after I do for 5 years, I got to prove?
Was that in the initial agreement? Like I said, hey, you could put in those different clauses and incentives.
It's too much of a business transaction.
That you get automatic. If things don't work out, you get a 6-month action plan. If you are up for a non-renewal, you get an extra.
But think about it though. It's a lot of situations where somebody might develop a gambling habit. Somebody might, you know what I'm saying? Anything could happen, but then you're like, what do? You know what I'm saying? I think that just people are, when they're incentivized, like we call it in the industry gamification. It's almost like, okay, if you got a leaderboard, or if it's something that you can usually measure yourself by as a result of being able to evaluate whether or not you performing better than the people that's next to you or whatever, like competition, just breeds a better result in most situations, and being able to sort out who's who. And so a lot of times I just really believe that if people had this subconscious thing in which they know, even in the NBA, people perform their best years before that contract. Like, they really want to come in shape and give the best performance that they can give when they know everything is on the line. So I just think that when you start adding non-guaranteed situations, you just get better results. Like, even with the unions, and a lot of times, like, that's the biggest thing with automakers is like, they know they're not going to get fired. That's why they don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, they going to push it all the way to the limit, and then they're going to do their job the way they're supposed to. They're going to do the very minimum that they got to do in order to continue to get paid. So it's almost like, I might want to look at it a little bit differently.
Yeah. And the thing is, think about with unions, it's not like they wait until the contract is up to be like, oh, we need to create a new CBA. No, they're already having those informed conversations beforehand. So you already kind of know what direction negotiations are going in before the contract is up.
Antoine, hold on for you.
Okay, are y'all acting the same way in your personal relationships that you do in your business relationships? Because I just don't see that dynamic. It's just a different dynamic with my partner, my husband, my love, than I do with my boss. So I don't want to create a contract the same way that I would in a business setting.
Why not?
It will be different functions.
I don't do that.
It wouldn't be
right.
Why not though? But why wouldn't you want it to be different?
because that's not how I relate to him. And that's not the environment we have. It's not a professional, clear cut. This is
All
you.
right. Well,
This
y'all
is
go with the
me. Like
legacy contract then.
So let me ask you a question, though. Okay, so but you're in your previous relationship prior to you getting married, things was probably a lot more awesome until you actually got into a situation with him, and then things changed. Do you think that that would have benefited you in that circumstance? Like, I don't know about this one, because you're only looking at it from the good side. What about when it's not so good for a lot of people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking at it from the good side because I've been through divorce. I guess, yes, I do think that eventually I was fed up with the marriage. I don't think that he changed. I think that I end up realizing like this is not the marriage for me, right? Like I came to that conclusion. He was who he was.
Yeah, you wanted to be a free agent. I got you.
I wanted to be, but I don't know, like.
Well,
You
Yeah,
asked
I
for
guess I
you
would
asked for a
like it to
trade.
be
You wanted to
easier.
sign a trade.
I think
You wanted to
I
sign a
think
trade.
I
Hey,
think
hold
what I
tight,
did
real.
was I was like I learned more, and I was like, no, let me find some, like let
well,
me take my
Yeah.
skills.
Hold on,
but
Nick. Hold on, Nick. Hold on,
go
Nick.
ahead.
One second. In 2021, we want to try to be a little bit more interactive with our
Okay.
listeners. So we do have one of our biggest supporters that's in our Facebook group. Her name is Capri, and we're going to bring her in so we can get her perspective on this question. Let's welcome Capri to this panel. How you doing, Capri? How you
Hi,
doing?
hello.
Hey,
Hey, what up though?
Take it off mute. Take it off mute, Capri.
Hi, can you hear
there you
me?
go.
We can
Oh,
hear
yes, we
you.
can.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, yay! Nice to meet you as well. I'm
All
two
right.
hours
So the
behind
question.
everyone. I'm in California, so
Okay,
Okay.
Oh, no.
that's what's up.
Well, don't brag about the sun and everything. Don't do
I won't.
that.
Cold to us is like 45 degrees, 60.
That's summer. That's summer here. We'll be
I
Right
running
for
know.
you
short.
guys. Exactly.
Capri,
You
I
guys
know you've
touched.
been kind of.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay,
No,
I
go
know
ahead.
you've been kind of listening to everything that's been talked about right now.
Hmm.
I want you to respond to some of the things that the crew has been talking about, and also you can answer: should marriage certificates have an expiration date?
Well, I believe everyone touched on pretty much what I, think, but I don't think it should, but I think it should be an option. My thought process is you wouldn't go into business with someone without a partnership agreement. And you want to make sure that if anything was to go awry, that you know what to do in the event that something goes outside of the bounds and the contract of that agreement. So this is why I even to this day, I don't care if I have $5 in my bank account. Prenuptial agreement needs to be put in place, and that's something I feel comfortable with given the high divorce rate. You think you're marrying, your Prince Charming or your, Sleeping Beauty, whoever, and then 2 years, a year down the line, this person does not turn out to be the person that you had initially married and loved and cared for. So I think having the option to have a term, I guess a limited term marriage, I think it should be an option for those. And I guess if we take prenuptial agreements into account, that it could be anything what you want it to be. That contract, it could be 4 years, it could be 2 years, it could be 10 years. And like you said, in 4 years, you don't want to be with this person. Instead of getting lawyers involved, let's just go our separate ways and call it a day. Now it gets
Contract
a little
over.
tricky when you have kids,
Right.
but that needs to be also entailed in whatever that contract is.
Man.
Capri, somebody posted it, and I also was thinking about it as well. But do you think that if it's a contract put in place, that people might not work as hard as they should be, knowing that they have an out?
I think people are going to act the way they're going to act regardless of whether something's in place or not. So contract or not, if you trash as a partner, it's going to show. As Anton said, the pressure may be there to act right. If you want that contract renewed, you're going to put your best foot forward, or it's going to sift out the trash partner that you are. I'm sure that a lot of people have been in relationships that they wish they had a contract put in place. There's a lot of people who I just really just got hurt in the process, of a divorce. You come in with more than half, and I think a contract is really to protect the interests of both people.
No, I agree, Capri, where, we always, I hope that this conversation for everyone is not slanted on the negative side, but this also shows investment to me. This shows that like both parties have a mutual agreement that they come together to say that, you know what, hey, I dig you to the point that I want to invest in you to the aspect of us doing this together. Because the thing is, I know we had talked about this more so from the aspect of culture, of things changing, of people not getting married. If anything, this may allow people to feel more comfortable going into a marriage, knowing that, you know what, hey, this is something that I'm willing to enter into, so I won't get jerked over, or really the person I thought that I married is no longer that person. So if anything, we've all been in situations, whether we have worked for an employer on our own, whether it's contractual or non-contractual. I always feel to my core is that if you put forth the effort and do what you're supposed to do and handle your business and boss up, then the contract almost is invisible if you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. I know there are situations that may come up that you're kind of blindsided, but that's life. Our current marriage could be blindsided to certain things that come up. But to me, something like a contract really shows investment in both parties into this union to say, hey, you know what? Both of us are coming together and I'm willing to invest in the betterment of this partnership.
Well, Max, that's well said. I must admit, when I first actually put this as a topic, I was sitting here saying a contract. Why would you have a contract? But after hearing you guys' perspective, it starts to make sense why I can understand why a lot of people would be in agreement with this. Tawana, I know when we first started the show, you were saying that you wasn't for it, but based off what everybody been saying, do you have a different view, or you still stand on we shouldn't have a contract?
I feel like y'all not really married until after that contract is over. I don't even really acknowledge, the contract to me is like, you might as well just stay in a relationship and just wait until y'all, figure it out. I just don't understand the purpose of getting married if you feel like you need to go into it with terms that are pre-designed by this government that will stop you from, I still don't agree.
That's why I kept saying it's not a bad thing. It is something.
It's not a bad thing, but to me, I just have an opposite view, and I'm more traditional.
So would you ever
sanctity of marriage in a different way? Yeah.
Do you believe in prenups?
It's not that I don't believe in them because so I guess I have a hard time understanding that question because it's like they're real, so I don't have to believe it. It's not like the tooth fairy or I think that they're real, and some people find them necessary for specific reasons. And I think that I'm not in a position where I ever will feel like I needed to have a prenuptial, and and I want to speak for Chris. Maybe he gonna put one on me one day, so I'm not going to act like that.
I guess the question is, would you sign one?
Yeah.
I'll sign one if he gets you.
Well, I mean, because the reason why I asked
because he's not saying your marriage is going to end in 5 years. He's saying, listen, if you stay with me for this amount of time, I don't mind giving you half of my world and half of my life. But if we don't last, here's our agreed upon terms, and I'm okay with that. I don't think
how is that any different from what we're talking about? Is my point, I guess. Because you emphasize that you don't understand what's the point of getting married if you going into it with these terms per se. But I don't see it being any different than a prenuptial agreement, because you literally can add whatever terms that you want based off of what it is, what your expectations are, or how you want to prevent yourself from being
Well, the difference
taken
is you
advantage
still
of.
have to go through an actual divorce, and you still have to go through that process. Like, it's not going to just be like, okay, this 5 years is over, now our marriage is like, we can walk away. It's more like, it's still a conscious decision to be like, hey, you know, we're going to separate lives. It's not like we have to make this decision because you're 5 into the contract. So I just feel like the terms are different. I understand what you guys are saying. Like, I understand both perspectives. Absolutely. I think that for me, it just sounds more like a business, and that's not really how my life runs. Like, that's not how my marriage is, or my relationship. That's just not how we are. So it's like hard for me to understand, him coming to the table like, yeah, so we're going to have this 5-year term. In this term, you better cook, clean, have this house. You better have sex with me 5 times a week. Or, after 5 years, I don't know. It might be like, I just can't understand those kind of terms. So, that's just my opinion. I do get what you guys are saying, though. It makes perfect sense, So, yeah. But no, I didn't change, JR.
Well,
it's 4 against 1 this time.
Well, I think, like Capri mentioned, like, hey, as long we're just putting a menu of options out there. The thing is, I think just having the opportunity out there, just like a prenup, like, Anton alluded to, that, hey, you know what, you have that option to enter your union with a prenup. And Capri, I don't know, like, being the expert of that, but I mentioned in California, like, there are certain, like, statutes that are in place based on what happens after so many years based on a prenuptial. So the thing is, this is really not that much of a reach of us talking about this from the aspect of the marriage, because the prenuptial is really almost like, I would say, like a memorandum or addendum to a marriage. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. It just doesn't eliminate the need to divorce. It doesn't eliminate the need to make that decision. It just, that's what the certificate does that I guess I'm uncomfortable with. Other than that, I do understand everything else and you guys are saying, but that's the part I'm like, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. Just feel like people gonna just be divorcing. I mean, separating.
Hey,
it's
but
like 5 or 6 marriages before you know.
2021. There's so many different things that we thought that we wouldn't see, good and bad, right now. But so it's just more so like us being progressive as we evolve as human beings,
Well, let me lock my man down before y'all add the certificate process, and then I got 5 years to perform. I don't have time for that.
Hey, you guys, I want to bring in one more person. It's my friend Larisha. She also has a podcast, which is This, That, and the Third. I'm gonna bring her in right now. We want to get her perspective. Hey, how you doing?
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Good,
I appreciate you tuning in. The question that's on the panel right now is: should marriage certificates have an expiration date? We'd love to hear your opinion.
I probably wouldn't mind.
Hey, we should do a poll, JR. Just saying, man. Hey,
Because it's something about that new, right? And I know it is what it is. I mean, to have the option to say, I think we tried it. We had fun. We had some good memories. But I think I'm gonna go this way. Like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, everybody seemed to agree about it. Tawana.
Hey, I do have one stipulation though. Like, if we were to do a
I
contract,
wouldn't even get married if that's how marriage was. Like, terms.
I don't know. Well, see,
I wouldn't even want to get married. For what? I'd just be like, let's just do this partnership.
People say
thing.
that now based on the current format of marriage. So I mean, hey, if anything, we're trying to help ensure integrity and ensure have assurance.
Well, that's because don't nobody want to commit nowadays. Everybody all sketchy. Like, well, let me just go in for 5 years.
But to the point we're making, this contract may make people feel more comfortable to be
Of course
married.
it will. Of course, because it's short term and you can get out of it.
You don't have to opt for the short term. I told you it's a whole life option.
A lifetime is a long time.
It is.
A lifetime is a long time. And I don't think people going to do it with that. Like it's forever. That's what you have to think. Is it forever? But with these divorce rates, are people even have the mental
Well,
capacity
I'm
to
probably the
even
only
know?
divorced person on the panel. Am I the only divorced person on the panel? Because I feel like I've been through divorce and I'm still optimistic.
Hey,
I was
We,
married.
we're
I was
optimistic
married.
too. We're optimistic,
I
but
was married
I
almost
think
10 years.
I thought you would have been in support.
I'm optimistic, but I know for me, if put in a position to where I was entering marriage, I would say let's put something in place, because I may not be the person you want to be married to in 4 years or 3 years or 5 or 10 years, and I don't want a nasty divorce. I don't want to go through all that. I don't want to get lawyers involved. I want to pull out that piece of paper, that agreement, and you could amend it all along the way, just like a prenuptial agreement. You can make it whatever you want it to be. And I
I
think
guess
the
my
part
question
that
is why get married? Why?
You can
Why
make that
do
argument
it? That's
every day.
because marriage also affords you
what?
the benefits that you wouldn't get as a single person. You know, I just think that it could work.
To me, you ain't
if
married
you
until after you pass your probationary period, your 5 years term. You can't
Hey,
even. You shouldn't
it's
even get
almost
no
like
benefits.
but it could be certain clauses. It could be like, you know what? I mean, not to compare this, but just like when you get to a certain age, it could be a certain amount of years, like you go to the DMV where you don't have to keep going through renewal. Like, hey, you reach that ceiling where, you know what? Hey, we're just going to roll the contract. You don't have
After
to get
your
a
third
renewal.
renewal.
Right, you don't have to go to the DMV. We just gonna renew this
Yeah.
unless you give us, tell us otherwise.
Yeah,
Hey,
if you've
well,
been together, let's say 35 years, damn a renewal. Y'all not going nowhere. Like, hey, y'all good.
Really?
Y'all
Yeah.
Y'all want foot in the grave.
The more
I guess
y'all
it's-
talk to me, it's like, okay,
Hey,
after 10 years,
Tawana,
we
the
still
thing is,
renewing
since you was,
contracts. Like,
I would
come
think when you
on,
being
dude.
divorced, you could have just did a non-renewal at year 10 and could have just walked away.
And I wouldn't have to go
and
through
that's
that
it.
divorce.
You wouldn't have to
Yeah.
deal with no strife, no back and
I'm glad
forth,
I went through that
no-
divorce because now I'm very, very conscious of never doing that
and
again,
it
or
takes away the
not
stigma.
wanting to do that
It
again.
takes away the stigma because people don't like that stigma of divorce. It could be like, hey, I just went for a non-renewal, you know.
That's it, right.
But is all those
No.
marriages gonna be on your belt though? So you're gonna have 5 and 6 marriages.
It might be, but
I ain't renewed the contract.
Tawana, and they encourage people to get married to the point. Me and Capri were just saying more people might want to get married. Like, hey, Capri, I might just want to do a 3-year deal. You know what I mean?
Not if I heard
I'm
you didn't
good
did
with that. If somebody might be good with that.
Hey, you guys, I
It's
guess.
like you.
Come on now.
Hold on.
If I know somebody did 10 non-renewals before me, I'm not trying to marry that fool.
Oh, so now you gonna count renewals to like a body
Yes,
count?
I'm gonna be like,
But
how you
that's the same thing with going into a relationship. There's people. I mean, not to speak on your relationship, but let's be honest. Let's be honest. Your man was with some people prior to you. Was it 2 people?
Probably me too.
10
So what? That's versa. But we ain't married all 10 of them fools.
But nobody's forcing nobody to get
still
married
a relationship.
anyway.
Hey, you guys.
Yeah, but I mean,
hey. So, we're gonna.
I mean, I don't know. The relationship, I don't know.
We're gonna put this to rest. I mean,
okay.
It's just like to each his own. Right now, we don't have any contracts in place, but pretty sure there's a lot of people that would like them in place. So we'll see what the future holds on this one.